24.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I don't know how I did that. I thought I just copied and pasted from the last steering committee meeting, but maybe not.
Yeah, it's easy to have
That's
something.
anybody else up.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Barry.
Hi. Hi, Barry.
Glad to be here. So I have a class in multipurpose room 3. It ostensibly starts at 10:30, but I think I'll stay till the end and then head right into that class. So I am on the Trails Club side of multipurpose room 3 right now on the outside because I wanted to have Wi-Fi so you could see me in reasonable fidelity and I could record it in reasonable fidelity, which we are doing right now, so that I could take better minutes. Anyway, so much
right.
for that preamble.
Okay. Well, I think
Amanda,
I
you
know
look,
Mark.
Amanda, you look bright now. It looks good.
Yeah, I managed to somehow unblur myself. Well, good morning, everyone. I know Margot and Adrian can't make it this morning. So I'll share my screen. My mail. I had my mail before. And this had
Would you like to share the agenda?
yeah, that's what I'm doing. Can
Oh.
you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, good. All righty. So we'll call the meeting to order. I don't think we'll need a timekeeper today. I think we have plenty of time. Any discussion about the minutes from the July meeting? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move. Pam.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Right, the minutes are approved. The next item is the agenda or the action items, and since we're missing Adrian again, might not get that much further on it. Boy, something.
Why
in
don't we
the
just
way.
why don't we just assign all of them to him?
Right.
Brad, that hasn't been working so far.
All right, so we'll say 1 and 2 are still open. 3 is still open, looking for the program director. 4 would be open. 5, we don't have Bruce here today. 6, Adrian. 7, we have the club room on the 12th. So that one is done. This one is still open, number 8.
Amanda, what's the date of the action items? Because I'm trying to document things well, and I couldn't find the most recent one I could find was May, but that could just be my poor record keeping.
Where are they? This is from July.
July. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Number 9. This one wasn't assigned, so we'll call it open. 10. I did write to Adrian, but we haven't discussed it yet. Dave is willing to learn how to do some web maintenance, so that one is still ongoing. 11, I'd say, was done. Is that right? We've had our 10th
Yep.
anniversary and a lot of unsung heroes showed.
Yep, Carol did that.
Yeah. 12, Carol?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Additional advertising. Yes, done.
Done. Number 13 is done. Number 14,
Done.
done. Number 15,
It's on today's agenda.
okay. And so we'll call it ongoing. And number 16,
Ongoing.
okay. So those are the agenda items. Let me get back to the agenda. Maybe this will help. Right, so the August 6th meeting review and the meet and greet with Linda Deschambault. I was, somebody approached me at the gym, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't know her, but she said that it was a fantastic meeting, and she found it so informative and uplifting. So that was my feedback. I've never been approached by anyone before about so enthusiastic about a meeting.
I was so sorry to miss it.
Yeah, me too.
I would just
What
say
did
that
you think, Brad, of your wonderful meeting?
it really was. The effort you put into planning it and thinking it through and, thinning it down to some essentials, or at least some, it wasn't easy, I'm sure, to decide what to leave out, but you did a good job.
Thank you, and kudos to you too, and to Ann Foreman and Jim Ware for being instrumental in the planning of this and bouncing ideas off. I will confess that I was a little bit harsher on it on the meeting than everyone else. I think that obviously it bothered me to have the stumbles with the technology, um, and and I think that, and I think I know how that happened, and what what I need to do to prevent it in the future. And since Adrian's not here, I can both badmouth him and give him kudos. Um, since Barry had blown the
Well,
coop and wasn't there to help with the setup of of the laptop. Yeah, both Adrian and I brought our laptops, and Adrian, to his credit, uh, took the lead and semi insisted that we use his laptop, even though my instinct told me that's not a good idea, since the PowerPoint deck is on my laptop, that I've been using, that I know and have tested it with. And so, and so we ran into a couple problems with running it off Adrian's, and
well,
so
on that score, I, I'm also apologetic. I thought that handing it off to Stu, that he knew all the details of putting it together, and unfortunately, when it comes to actually being in the saddle, that was not proved to be the case. So then it was left to you guys. So I thought I had handed it off to the right person, and in the future, I mean, I'll be working with Gerald when I'm not there, but I will also do a better job of coaching someone. For Fairway, there are, like, 10 connections you have to make if you really want the fidelity to be proper, for everybody to hear it very clearly, and it's just involved to do hybrid. So my apologies for that.
Barry, in this case, no apology needed, because that wasn't where we ran into the problems. it was after that, after we got it connected. And just for your information, when we first, started hooking it up, we tried to hook it up, the AV tech that came was Charles. And
Yeah, well, he doesn't know how to do it.
and he had no intention of trying to help.
Right.
And then he walked away. So I finally called the front gate and had him send the AV tech. Fortunately, Elias showed up. He was very knowledgeable. He was helpful. He got it up and running and fine.
Okay,
So
good.
the problems we ran into were after that.
Okay,
And
okay.
also one of the issues I think we had was, as you know, is the Zoom link, not working, for the, and I have a theory, Barry. I don't think it's because Zoom timed out, a a standing meeting, because I've got one or two, Zoom meetings that I've had open for the wellness group for the last 2 or 3 years. I
Yeah,
think
okay.
my bet is what it is that if point of failure was with tiny URL, they probably periodically clean up their, members list, or something goes
Mhm.
wrong in their system, and that just breaks the link, and it's so.
That
So
makes sense.
my recommendation is in the future, you just give everybody the full native Zoom link. Yeah, it's uglier, but again, we know it works, and we've been using it.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
but fortunately, I think that we with all the challenges, I think it came off really well. Everybody seemed to be participatory, and the bottom line was, I think only one person out of the 30 to 40 people we had in the room left early.
Well, I'm gonna say there was 40, and I think the cake was a big attraction to
Yep.
stay. It was very well received, Pam. Thank
That's
you.
good. I'm glad everybody liked it.
Well, I don't know. I didn't get any.
Really? Oh, I got the
That's okay.
leftovers.
No, that's okay.
Dawn, you've had your hand up.
Thanks, Amanda. Yes, and whoever made the cake did a really nice job with the logo on the
That
cake.
was Timeless Coffee in Piedmont. They're an all vegan bakery and coffee shop. And I sent them the logo, and I thought they did a great job.
They did.
Piedmont. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it was a very fine review. As the newbie, it is nice to get the history. And I thought the story and having the person present who was involved in the passing of the law regarding HOAs and rooftop EV, solar power. That's a great story. It's really good story, and
Yep.
the Sustainable Rossmoor should be very proud. And I just really, that really stood out for me.
Thank you, Don. That was Jennifer Moo, and and so I invited her to come and give that story as part of the celebration. And while she was there, with no prompting, she renewed her membership in the club. So, and I got to say that the story is actually richer than she in her modesty was willing to share. And she and Brett just worked their butts off for 10 months to make that happen. And without them, it wouldn't have happened.
And I enjoyed celebrating all the other unsung heroes, and I think they look really pleased to be recognized, was my sense. That they all showed up, didn't they, Carol?
Yes, they did. And I think the way you did it, Brad, with listing them on a screen, rather than having them stand up and say something or give them a piece of paper, that was much more classy, and I think, a little more efficient, but also every bit as enjoyable for both the audience and them.
Yep, good. Thank you.
Carol, what's your feedback on the Linda portion of the event?
People got there very late. There may have been a confusion between the party versus her part of the event, but she waited. I think she was timed to start at 6 and she waited until 6:30. So she gave her spiel, which was still a half hour before our meeting. So by then the room was about half full. And by the time the party started, we were full up. I think there was one empty seat and people had added a couple more. So it was, yeah, it was good. And she brought literature and stuff and most of it disappeared, so I can add, although it's supposed to be secret, so nobody tell anything, she was unanimously endorsed last night by the local Democratic Party of Contra Costa.
Well, good.
It was a straw poll. We have to go through a couple other levels of, concurrence, but the higher levels of the decision-making process never go against the locals when it's unanimous.
All right. I think it works well too to combine our meet and greets with our normal membership meeting. That
You
we
too.
get
And the
a
fact
few more people there.
yeah, and it's a big enough room and it doesn't cost more. And we have
Mhm.
share refreshments. So a lot of just logistics make it work well too.
Can I throw in one word of caution? One of the things that, from my standpoint, didn't work well with that one was because of the timing difference. I presume that, yes, the meeting would start at 7, the meet and greet would start at 5:30, and then and would go about a half an hour, and then from 6:30 to 7, Barry and Adrian and I and anybody else, the AV guys would have ability to get the equipment set up for the meeting at 7. And so because that timeline got compressed, there was a little bit of challenge and friction between Linda, and needing to speak from 6:30 to 7, while we're trying to get the system set up and test the audio. So
She started speaking at 6 or about 5 minutes after 6, but she was at the front but didn't use slides. I guess I assumed that you were starting to set up while she was speaking. Maybe not.
we had no choice because we had to be ready at 7.
Okay.
And we
So
figured it takes at least a half an hour to set up before the meeting. So from 6:30 to 7, that's
right. Get it.
our
I
time.
get it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Are there any additional steps after that meeting? I do think it'd be rather interesting to have that history documented a little bit while we still have Jennifer and Anne, and not that they're going anywhere, but it's a really interesting story.
Yes, we are going someplace. At least our memories are.
Yeah. What was the Zoom part recorded so we could document it that way? I'm just asking the question. I don't know.
I do have the recording. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Well,
recorded it.
okay, we could load that up to YouTube and then someone, if we can get a transcription of that even, and that could serve as a start for portions of it. It's
Yeah,
just,
we actually used to have a nice write-up about AB 634 on the website. I think when Adrian took over the website, he may have put it in an archive somewhere. So I don't think you'd have to rewrite that section.
Right.
And Barry, my recollection is Barbara was the only Zoomer. Yeah, everyone else was a rumor. And I promise we'll never know how much of that was caused by that
yeah,
busted Zoom link. So
right. Yeah.
I got knocked off, actually.
We didn't kick you out.
I know, it just went away. So I look forward to the recording.
Did you try signing back in?
No,
Okay.
Amanda, would you be so kind as to send out the recording to
Sure.
the steering committee because several of us could not attend?
Put it down as an action item. Send out to steering committee. Okay. The next item is the August 28th Eco Forum.
Well, that's on the agenda, so I'll,
Yeah,
yeah.
This is the agenda. Yeah.
Oh, so it is, excuse me. All right.
Okay.
So it is. It's going well, the preparations. We have a small committee of people who are reviewing the questions. We had about 16 questions submitted. And there's a little bit of redundancy, but we've got a nice spread among questions about the various aspects of sustainability, from everything from trees to food to transportation to clean energy, decarbonization. So that's satisfying. And there's a member from Sustainable Contra Costa, the internet uh, count, internet, no, internet faith. Yeah,
Carol, you're mumbling a little. It's not coming through.
internet climate action, internet, oh, come on. Interfaith Climate Action Network. There, finally got it right. And 350 Contra Costa. So those three and I have been polishing the questions, removed a few and reworded them. So we're down to 8 questions now. And we're thinking of going either 60 seconds or 90 seconds to allow each of the candidates to respond, and there will be time for more questions from the floor at the end. Does anybody, and so I have 2 questions. The first is, does anybody on this call have any feeling or leaning towards allowing a 60-second response versus a 90-second response?
There are 5 candidates
Yes,
and the total length of time for the
is
event.
is an hour and a half.
Okay.
And the
They
thing,
seem like very long.
it would be that we'd have fewer questions from the audience. So
Mhm. Are are they get to make an opening or closing
yes,
statement?
both.
Okay, so
We
just
figured
do,
on 2 minutes of opening and 1 minute of closing.
okay, just do the math and that should tell you how much time they have.
I had proposed 60 seconds because once we did it 4 years ago, we found that 3 minutes was way too long. And you can say a lot in 60 seconds, but it also means you have sort of prepared your thoughts and your ideas. And these will be more off the cuff to some extent. So I'm fine to go either way. I guess our little mini committee will figure it out unless someone has a thought about that.
I guess I lean a little bit more to the 90 seconds. If that, if people are in the moment thinking what they're going to say, I think 60 seconds is going to be hard. That's just my thought, Carol. I mean, I can live with 60 seconds, but
I understand. And I think the first person is at a disadvantage, so the others can be thinking while one person's talking.
yeah.
But also they don't want to be redundant, either. So anyhow, so the other question I have is that I need a volunteer to be a timekeeper. A pair of timekeepers were part of the way that the Democrats of Rossmoor did their forum last week, and it worked very well. They all sort of alternated and helped each other, so it went so smoothly. I asked them if we could hire them, and one said yes, and the other's not going to be available. So I need half of a pair. I need someone to join with Linda Wallen and to be timekeeper, which means sitting in the front row and holding up pieces of paper that say, you know, 10 seconds and then time's up.
What,
I
what's
can
the-
do that,
Who was that?
Barbara.
Barbara,
Barbara?
Barbara. Thank you,
What is it?
Barbara.
What is the date of the event again? Oh, it's August 28th. Let's see.
Yep. Yep, that's a Thursday.
It's coming right up, isn't it?
No, excuse me, it's a Wednesday. I got different.
It's a week from Wednesday. I see it now.
Yes, it is. It's a Wednesday at 6 o'clock. That's to allow some people who are working to come. There's a few, but not very many people coming from out of Rossmoor. And I really want to encourage people to attend and bring someone. It's going to be awfully awkward if we have a room that's only got a few people for this event. So please plan to come and please bring someone.
Hmm.
A seat warmer if needed.
And Carol, what room is it in?
It's in the fireside with a stage across
That's what I thought.
sideways where the audience faces the plaza.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many people attended the last forum
Well,
or the
the
city
Democrats of
council
Rossmoor,
with the Democrats?
yeah, it was not at all comparable. The Democrats of Rossmoor is a club that has literally 10 times as many people. And also they had a featured keynote speaker first, which was Eric Swalwell. And I got there early to help set up, and the room was already full. Every seat was taken. So they added more seats, and then it was still standing room only when he was speaking. And about half of the audience left when he finished. And then it kept dwindling. So by the end of the forum, there were
how
maybe
about compared to the Eco Forum that Sustainable Rossmoor did a couple years ago,
we did it on Zoom because it was during COVID.
right?
So I don't remember. Yeah. So well, all I can say is please, if for any reason you're out of town or whatever, kick your neighbor or somebody to make them come. And
Okay,
it's going to be fast. It's not going to be fast paced. There'll be nothing boring about it. So
okay. It will also be it will be hybrid. There will be so Zoom will be an option for some. I know you prefer people there, but it will be recorded so people can view it.
watch it later. But it's not going to be hybrid in the sense that we're going to be taking questions from Zoom during the
Right.
event.
Okay.
Yeah. But still, to have it recorded and to have only, a dozen people in that big room would be really awkward. So the recording is good. I'm glad you're doing it and the effort you're putting into that. And some people will benefit, but I'm more concerned about not embarrassing Sustainable Rossmoor.
Fair enough.
That's all. Over and out.
Over and out. All right. Item 2, the upcoming meetings. I think we're good through the rest of the year with Orhan host and Mittenmeyer. In September, then Luz Gomez, and then November, we're going to have our debrief after the elections. And December is our planning meeting. So any questions regarding our upcoming schedule? Okay, we're good. The next item regards Earth Matters column and the moratorium on political columns in Rossmoor News. Adrian's not here to talk, but you had all seen what he'd written to Ann Peterson and her response.
Oh, I didn't see her response. I
Didn't
only
see
I
I
don't
either.
I don't think I saw that.
I don't think I did either.
Okay.
what
Well,
can we?
he did mention we're not to forward it on, but basically Ann Peterson is in agreement in principle on the Earth Matters, that not all of the columns are political, and she cited some specific examples of I know Barry's was one. I think Adrian had another one that, weren't political. Karen Perkins, one about how the military impacts climate change, she felt was too political. But on the whole, she, is in support of keeping the column and will be taking it to the GRF board.
I'm glad that's
But
the conclusion she came to, but I consider political something where it's not based in fact or, not commonly agreed upon fact. And to say that military is political because you don't want to depreciate the military because they're the worst polluters in the United States. I don't know.
I don't remember what else was in Karen's column, but anyway, Pam's got her hand up.
yeah, Pam.
Well, I think the distinction that Anne made was that in the Earth Matters columns that she thought were acceptable, they specifically related to actions that were taking place in Rossmoor, like EV charging and solar, rooftop solar and things that were specific to Rossmoor. So she thought it fit into the newspaper, how it was supposed to highlight life in Rossmoor and things that were important for life in Rossmoor. So I think that was really the distinction that she made.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, agreed. That was definitely the point, that if we tie it into Rossmoor, much more likely that she'll put it in the paper.
Right.
Does anyone want to discuss the moratorium on political columns in the Rossmoor News?
Yeah, I
Barb?
do. Yeah.
Barbara?
Well,
Okay.
first of all, thanks for putting it on the agenda. And I assume you all read Adrian's wonderful letter that will appear in the paper. I want direction on how we're going to present, or if we're going to present at the policy meeting on September 9th. And what Sustainable Rossmoor, so Sustainable Rossmoor is going to go with We Are Not a Political Column.
Correct.
And we could just use all of Anne's arguments for that.
Well, I don't know if that's helpful or not, because Anne, while it's helpful in that she's maybe more objective, um, Anne serves at the pleasure of the board and the policy committee, so they might not take kindly to her speaking out of turn.
Well, I'm not saying to quote her and say it's her. I'm just saying follow her direction on reasons why we shouldn't be considered a political column.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
like if we were to do what she said, if we were to argue that for the most part, our columns talk about life in Rossmoor and how people in Rossmoor are doing things, relative to sustainability and climate change. If we could promise to do that going forward, maybe they'd go for that.
Yes, we could also bring out as you always say, talk about the money and, articles about solar power and water tolerant, drought tolerant planting, landscaping, and like the trees and things like that. Like Leela had a column to go now about California buckeyes and how planting those in Rossmoor would be a good thing. So that saves money for Rossmoor.
And that seems like it would fit into what Anne was talking about, how it relates specifically to things that are happening in Rossmoor.
I agree.
Yeah.
Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I'll confess that I would suggest we seriously consider pushing back on Anne and her requirement that the articles needed to be Rossmoor centric or more Rossmoor specific. And because I think that one of the things one of the values of Earth Matter Column is to help, expand the understanding of, any Rossmoorian that reads it about the climate change catastrophe that's coming down on us and is already on us. And so for me, I think her argument doesn't hold water. And I don't think that, talking about climate change is political at all. I mean, so,
Well, let me just say that we're not pushing back on Anne, we'd be pushing back on GRF. Anne is trying to help us at least get some of our columns published by saying that if we have them specific to Rossmoor and life in Rossmoor, it's easier for her to justify printing them. So I don't think
sure.
it's for pushing back on, it's GRF. And I don't think you're ever going to convince them that climate change isn't political as long as you've got the Republican people saying climate change is a hoax. So it's not, even though we can say it's science, I think they're still going to argue it's political since not everybody agrees with the science. So I don't know how you push back on Anne. She's really trying to help us get some of our stuff published.
Okay. And so, so let me change that. Let me change my comments and take out the part about Anne.
Okay.
But it still seems to me, we should at least consider ginning up a significant persuasion campaign against the policy committee and the GF board.
What
And
kind?
but maybe it's just because for some reason, I'm just edging for a fight, and just this seems to be a good one to pick. But so keep that in mind.
It's a good one. Bring everything else we do.
I'd just like to say that this issue about if it's political or not, I think that from what I understand, it's the GRF policy committee and Anne deciding these issues. And I wonder if what we might do is propose to have a resident committee, which would be an editorial advisory, so that GRF policy would not be looking at the newspaper, and that resident opinion, resident intelligence, awareness, and politics would be advising. And I'm saying that having a committee of 5 people to work with Anne in deciding these issues would be a way around this problem, because I think politics are present, and I think climate change is an indication of culture changing. And I think that having a resident advisory committee to work on this, rather than having it be the subject of so many pages in time, I would just like to see that Sustainable Rossmoor propose that as a possibility. It would be a new committee, but I think that policy committee and GRF and Anne is just not it's inadequate to deal with the issue. Thank you.
I think I'm next. That would be a wise thing to do. I agree.
I had my hand up. Somehow it got taken
Right.
down.
I can't, yeah.
So,
I think maybe mine did too. You go ahead, Barry.
The suggestion of Barb's original question of should we present at the policy meeting on December 9th, I think we should have a position. And I think we're arriving at that, although but that's the proposal, and I second that there be a proposal. I guess to get it a little more actionable, that we have a subcommittee of who wants to do it to do a first draft, a person to do a first draft, and then debate it and come up with something we agree on, and then present it to the steering committee at the next steering committee meeting.
I'm not sure that's what how I understood what Don was saying. Oh, I
So-
can't hear Mary.
Barry, you're on mute.
So you, before Don spoke, you said, are we going to present at the policy meeting on December 9th?
Right.
So I'm saying, yes, I think we should. And yes, Don had a separate suggestion that we have, suggest a resident advisory committee, that we propose that at presumably at the policy meeting as something for them to consider. I'm saying that we should meet. I think it should be more than that, because that is a suggestion. But I think we're concerned about having the Earth Matters column be considered political. I think we have to have a clear policy on that based on what Adrian had written and what Anne had responded to. I think we're moving. I think we have good reasons for it not to be considered political. I think that's the major thing that we're looking to have us reinstated as a non-political committee. I think Don's suggestion is a good one, but I think it's a separate suggestion. It can be made by a separate person, and because all of us, we only have 2 minutes to say something there. There's only so much we can do in that time.
Carol.
I think you just said all of us. I think you mean each of us has 2 minutes. And I will be there if you tell me what time it is.
I think it's, I'll find out. I think it's 1:30 or so. Used to be.
And
And
that's September the 9th or December?
September.
September the 9th,
and that's a Monday.
right? And
I'll
my
wait.
understanding on the political columns, it's a moratorium, so just a temporary suspension. Is that everyone else's understanding?
Just until
Yes.
the policy
Yes.
committee hear it.
Yes, but as a moratorium, it could be put into permanent
Right.
Yes.
practice.
I
Okay.
think we should argue that we're not a political column and
Right.
I
provide.
agree.
Yeah.
I have a nuance to add, and that is if they want to get stickly about whether it applies to things in Rossmoor versus outside, there's at least 2 developments in our county that aren't yet impacting Rossmoor, but that likely will. One is the hydrogen hub that's going to include Chevron, very flammable. Other states have had problems, other countries in the past, and obviously they're going to try to do it so it doesn't, but it puts us at risk if it goes on. If a fire gets onto Briones Park, as dry as it is, then it takes about 20 minutes to get here. So the firestorm moves really quickly if it's like Paradise. So that's one. And the other is a spill from carbon dioxide, which is not flammable, but is lethal and will affect probably all the fish and marine life in the Delta and so forth. So I think it's rather arbitrary to say that it has to be within Rossmoor Gates.
I agree.
Mhm.
Everything that happens will impacts us. But I think for the purposes of being able to continue with Earth Matters, well, maybe we have to be pragmatic and get some direction on just what we can do. How much outside of Rossmoor, that if we can show that it impacts Rossmoor, would that be okay? But I think that might be something to do after we get the okay to continue as not a political column.
A few years ago, Jennifer Mew wrote a very good article about aviation and the carbon footprint. Well, we don't have airplanes taking off and landing in Rossmoor, but many of us take flights. So I think we have to, I would be inclined to bring that up. Not necessarily all of us, but I would like to question the wisdom of having pretending that there's a border between Rossmoor and the rest of the world that it relates to carbon.
That would be fine. Would you like me to draft something that I would say?
Yes,
Please, Barbara.
Sure.
And I didn't know if Adrian could be there or not. I thought somebody couldn't. Maybe Adrian can't be there, but Paul said he would present whatever Adrian might say. So we'll pursue, I can pursue that.
good.
Just like to comment about the working it to recognize that Earth Matters is not a political column. It just seems like a false issue, and my hesitancy in going along with that is that they have set up this false equivalency of some of the columns, of comparing the columns. And so they've drawn this binary of right and left. And so I'm concerned that, but in considering Earth Matters as not a political column, it would turn into a situation of saying that the Republican perspective, for example, would also then be declared as not a political column or some other column. And it's this equivalency that I consider, it's my own opinion, is it's not accurate, because those are specific political comments written. And this was my response that occurred when this first came up a year ago. I just feel that that situation, it's an impossible situation there in declaring one is not political. And I think that traditional journalism practice, excuse me if I'm incorrect, but this is the reason that you call it an opinion page in the newspaper. And so thank you.
Don, do you want to write up something to present?
I would present this idea about having a resident committee. Yes, I would present
Okay.
that. Yes. I don't know. I would speak in this 2-minute zone that the resident forum portion. I don't I other than that, I wouldn't be able to.
Okay.
I was wondering how Leanne, how they could just make that decision that they were going to do that, like
Exactly.
Yes.
based on what? One incident that certainly was not, I don't think, motivated by a political column,
Right.
political situation, but not anything in the paper.
That
So
they seem to be equating civil discourse with only civility. That
yes,
they don't want there to be any discourse because they don't want any disagreement. It
right.
is, I think, a very narrow view, and is putting us, it's pushing us away from democracy and free expression. It's a bigger, but that's a bigger issue. But I think as having standing as Sustainable Rossmoor, we need to make those we can make those statements at the policy meeting.
To say we think they're going too far? Is that what you're saying? Or what?
Well, saying we can say, and I'm sure Adrian will and others will, that sustainable Rossmoor is not political. Uh, Don's suggestion of a that he'll be making, we can make all those statements, but for but and anything that sustainable Rossmoor makes has to be agreed to. So has to be prepared ahead of time if it's coming from if it's representing sustainable Rossmoor.
I agree. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll draft something up, and run it by you guys, and hopefully Adrian can be there and we can all be there and take our 2 minutes.
I have a question for Pam. Would you ever envision having a desire to make some comments about the legislative committee and what we've done in that article? Because that
and
gets closer to political.
if anybody thought that would be helpful, I could put something together. I hadn't really considered it, but
Because that's nonpartisan, whatever you,
Yeah, but they're not talking about partisan. They're definitely talking about political. While you guys have been talking, I've looked up
yeah,
definitions of political.
yes, you're right.
And what'd you find, Carol?
The ways that government makes rules and laws to manage the human society properly is one definition. Politics can be seen in other groups such as companies, clubs, schools, and churches. And it has to do with individuals being governed.
But don't you think they have their own definition of what political is?
Yes, exactly. Yes, there you go.
I think they do, it seems to me that they mean partisan.
I agree.
yeah.
Especially since as our mentor, Bob Hansen always used to say, everything is political, which means under that definition, they need to shut down the Rossmoor News.
Mm-hmm.
But
Why not?
a comment about the military and the carbon footprint of the military, I wonder if that's really, I mean, I understand that we may want to give up the space about in Rossmoor and not in Rossmoor just to settle the dispute, but I don't see how the carbon footprint of the military is partisan.
Not,
Okay,
You know what's occurring to me? I think this is just such a difficult issue. It would be important, I think, to acknowledge that whenever we're talking about this stuff, we're in a gray area because everything is political, as Brad said. I mean, everything's connected, everything is political at some level.
right.
And I mean, the board or the policy committee in addressing this has to acknowledge this is not an either or. This is about drawing some kind of arbitrary line on a continuum. And they need to be conscious about that. That's what they're doing. They're not saying this is, there's no way to say this is this or this is that. That's not the territory. So anyway, if I were writing it, and I'm not going to, that would be my framing before I said anything else. I don't know where I'd take the argument from there. I mean, certainly we have layers of our argument. I'm hearing at least three different layers of our argument. One, Earth Matters column is not political. Two, we think the process for deciding that is not appropriate for our community. We need a resident committee. Three, it seems inappropriate for the newspaper to be being, and as governed by GRF seems inappropriate for them to take this position suddenly. So
right.
those are three different points that we're looking at making, right?
Yes.
And so how about being sure in whatever we write that we frame it, we're talking gray area here, everybody. And we're trying to draw a line somewhere that makes sense for our community. You know, it's kind of like, you know, what's pornography and what's art? You know, for example, that's a, you know, it's a gray area.
Mhm.
I'm not comfortable speaking to anything but the idea that Earth Matters is not a political column. I think we have to tread very lightly and just, I'm not comfortable going any further than that at this particular meeting.
We
But
could,
certainly everybody else can.
we can make much more of a case that GRF is political and the decisions they make are very political and partisan.
Yep,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, they are elected, so yeah.
right.
And there, I mean, going back to Carol's original definition, it's all about governing.
Yeah.
It's political.
But if one person gets to decide that we're not going to be able to have these columns, that's a dictatorship. That's not governing. That's somebody just decreeing.
Right.
Brad?
Yeah, I just want to clarify my understanding, that it was Leanne Hamaji, the current GRF board president, who dictated the moratorium on political columns. It wasn't Ann Peterson. She's just following, you know, the
Right.
instructions
Right.
of and probably Ann then I'm guessing was probably the person who, in deciding which of the columns were political that ought to be, you know, moritize them, was probably the one who decided that Earth Matters fell in that category. I don't know that, but
Because it always has. Historically, it's been that. So it's our job to convince them that that's not the case.
By the way, did the other GRF board members support Hamaji's decision?
I would think some of them would have to in order for it to go forward.
Yeah, I just I'm not clear on technically whether it was a dictatorship move or whether it was something that she wanted to do and then she got it approved by the group. I just don't know.
I would assume she would have to. But I don't know
I,
that in fact that
I don't know that they're on record. I have spoken to several of the GRF board members individually and asked them why they thought that Earth Matters was political, and they said they didn't think it was. So,
Oh,
you know, personally, what they're viewing versus not offending Leanne. So I don't know that the decision of which ones were political and which ones weren't were were debated very much. I think it was just a blanket thing. That's
That's
just my
not
guess.
that's not what I was asking, what I was commenting on or asking about, Barry. I was asking about just putting the moratorium in place. That's
All the columns.
Sorry,
they
I
would
thought I
have
was
had to
responding to
vote
some.
on it.
I'm
I
sorry,
would-
I couldn't hear.
I just
Don?
wanted to, oh, go ahead, Barbara.
No, Don, go.
I just
No,
want to relate my experience when this first came up over a year ago. I had a phone conversation with Ann Peterson, and I asked her about how it was deemed political, and she told me that in uh, in the past, Sustainable Rossmoor had referred to a particular state bill in the California legislature for passage and recommending the passage of that. And I don't recall specifically what she said, but I have to wonder if this was the bill that the Rossmoor resident and her husband wrote, Jennifer Moo, that she wrote in support of the the rooftop solar bill. And I wonder if that's the bill. And I think that this demonstrates the point that Sustainable Rossmoor has educated, but it has also reflected the change that's occurred in our culture of a wider acceptance of solar. And so at one time, that was political, but I was really stunned by the fact that she was referring to something which occurred a decade ago. And so this is why I just really focus on the idea that a resident advisory board would needs to exist between the GRF policy committee and the Rossmoor News.
Hey, Don, this is Brad. I will confess I would be very disappointed in GRF if that were the case, because AB 634 was passed long before Ann Peterson was even considered, for any position here in Rossmoor. So, which means that she would have had to been told that by someone else.
And I think that's likely,
Yep.
possible.
Don, I support your suggesting the advisory committee. I will tell, and we're feeling the same thing with, there's just a general moving away from customer service and hearing what the residents want. They're getting more and more insular. So I think it's the right thing, but I know that they are looking not favorably toward advisory committees. We were talking about one. There was a meeting that David Costers had about this whole the whole reservation system, and suggesting an advisory committee to help put together some recommendations, and they rejected it out of hand. They didn't want to hear about advisory committees. Again, I think you should suggest it, but for some reason they're wanting to insulate themselves from hearing what residents have to say. They just want to have order and civility and not have to hear anybody. And that's unfortunate, the direction that the current board seems to be heading toward. They feel like they're doing the right thing, but I think it's ill advised.
And Barry, I agree with you.
I can't blame. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to tag on to what Barry said. I think you're right on both those, and it behooves us to also remember that the GRF board members who are making these decisions are volunteers and spending a lot of time. They're going to lean heavily towards the easiest solution.
I understand, and I certainly understand that it's a lot easier to not listen to other people.
Bingo.
But I think that the issue about the room reservation certainly affected Friends of Tice Creek, and there was a problem that specifically occurred, and I had no idea that they were rolling out a different system. And in the middle of this, Friends of Tice Creek got into a confrontation with a group that felt that it was their room, and we moved on out of interest of listening to other people. However, I think that that room reservation system is something that GRF can resolve, but I see this as a significant issue. And while I understand what you're saying, I think that I would like to make the recommendation. And I appreciate, Barry, what you're saying is it's a warning to me in preparing the statements.
Yeah, I was just wanting to forewarn you, but I do support what you want to do.
Thank you.
So in terms of what the steering committee wants to do, what Sustainable Rossmoor as a club wants to do we want to take on the whole elephant, or do we want to just do a piece of one of these three suggestions that we're considering?
I'll raise my hand. So is I agree with Don's suggestion. I think Anne would welcome it. And, but is he doing that for sustainable Rossmoor or as a resident?
That's really my question, Barbara. Thank you.
I wonder if it isn't more, if it isn't easier to just each make our own statements, of which there'll be a lot of overlap. I think, I'm not sure what the policy is for an official comment by the club, even if we came to a consensus on that. I know as city council, you're having reduced time rather than having a 2 minutes per person, so.
What
Yeah,
reduces the time, Carol? What would reduce your time?
That's at city council. I have no idea what the, if a comment, it could be, there's been absolutely no indication that they follow the same governing principles or policies or, you know, rules of order that the city council does. So forget that. It's irrelevant. I just,
uh,
I think it's easier if we each make our own comment.
uh, I agree. You know, we get each resident gets 2 minutes. We don't get any special consideration as a club, and I think we should do that. You know, one of those residents can. I mean, Amanda, as president, can speak as president of Sustainable Rossmoor and or as a position there, if we come to that position. Um, but I think we should all be able to speak individually and should touch on one aspect of this. I'm inclined to just do a smaller part of the elephant, just that we're not a political column, because to Brad's point, they're going to do what's easiest, and I think that could get through. I think the more we pile on, the whole thing is not going to get pushed through. I think we can address other things at a subsequent time.
That's my position also.
I agree, Barry.
Well, it sounds like we need a position on what can go into the Earth Matters column so that it's not political.
But
Because I
before
do
we do,
think we could write political columns, you know. So I guess what is the focus of Earth Matters? A
And
statement about what it is.
we had planned to. Karen Perkins was all set to write an article for this week, I think is when it appears, or it's next week, would have appeared. And that was to promote or to talk about the climate champion that Marisol Rubio is. So that's clear-cut political, I think. But with that flew in the primary, that analogous article that she wrote went through just fine for the primary.
But it's changed since then because of what Leanne did. So what
Right.
was okay then is not okay now until we get it clarified. Well, it
Right.
still won't be okay because it is clearly political.
well, I mean, it seems to me one of the things all of us Rossmorians who are interested in this arena need to get a clarification from Jeff is what is the specific definition they're using of political?
Right.
That's a point.
And
Yeah.
if it has to be within Rossmoor, then the GRF should not have articles about fire or earthquake or drought.
Right.
Those are political topics.
Yeah. I'm so
I was-
sorry, but I have to leave now, and I apologize so much. But I will be
Barbara, Barbara, that's when we're having fun.
I know it's getting juicy. I'll draft something that I will say about why I think we're not a political column.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. And I tend to agree that that's the bite of the elephant we should take right now. I'm just thinking pragmatically. And Dawn, if you want to do your suggestion as an individual, that would be great.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think
I
there's
would,
value in asking for more than you want, because then they can, feel better about giving you part of what you want.
Yeah, like a real estate deal or something.
Right.
well, I agree with Barry's recommendation that each of us makes the comment, and I think that we might identify ourselves as members of Sustainable Rossmoor. But as far as Susan, the comments you're making about putting it all together, I think that perhaps at the meeting or in hearing this, GRF may connect the dots and see that this is different levels. And so they could do the easy thing and connect the dots and put that together rather than taking a sustainable Rossmoor recommendation. But I think it's a good approach that we commit to having a number of members there to speak our particular and known to a sustainable Rossmoor steering committee to know our position. So I would even make a motion if we wanted to vote on it, that we speak separately as residents, identifying ourselves as members of Sustainable Rossmoor.
I second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
I
I,
Okay, the motion passes. Carol, I just want to get back to Karen Perkins' article about Marisol. Is that going to be published, or it's just
Nope, it's
a
part of
moratorium?
what got caught up in the moratorium.
Okay,
And I don't think they even know that that was, in the offings. But anyway,
so was it submitted?
no, she hadn't written
Okay,
it. She hadn't finished it.
okay. All right,
What I told her,
thank
she
you.
should write up talking points of some of the key points that she would have made and give it to various, ask those of us and others which of the points they would want to make and put it in a letter so that we have multiple letters to the residents forum that cover some of the same issues.
I think we only have 18 more minutes. Candidate endorsement process. Carol.
We called a meeting almost immediately after our last sustainability, our last steering committee meeting. And there were 4 of us, Pam, Brad, me, and who was the other one?
Was it Don?
Hmm?
Was it Don?
Nope. Anyway, it'll come to me in a second. I know it was not Susan, but anyhow, I sent out the minutes a month ago, a week ago, so
Karen
people could,
Perkins.
yeah, I guess so. Right, that sounds right. I sent out the minutes a week ago with the proposals, and where we had gotten to was a draft of a survey that first of all, the process would be that any of the steering committee or any member of Sustainable Rossmoor that wanted to propose endorsing someone would bring it to the steering committee, and the steering committee could anoint that person to work up the the endorsement procedure so that they would get the applicant to fill out the candidate to fill out our application, and to the supporter would research what they could on the internet and on elsewhere of what they could find out about the opponent or opponents plural. And we decided we didn't want to try to do interviews. So after the information from the nominator has been provided and the application has been received, the steering committee could probably by e-vote decide whether to endorse a person or not. That was what we proposed.
The other one was Marcia.
That's right.
Marsha McLean, thank you very much, Pam.
so I did have a reaction to the proposal. I thought it was very, what should I say? I'm trying to think of exactly the right word, thorough, responsible, and all of that good stuff. And it seemed like a lot. It seemed like it might actually be difficult to get all the steps done in a timely way. And it seemed like a lot of process to me. And I'm a process person. So uh, just registering my reaction. It wasn't, I didn't have issues with particular parts of the process.
I think it's the minimum that we'd want to do, and it's only going to happen pre-election times. So twice once every other year, unless there's a special election that comes up. And we're probably done for this year. So,
Well,
Well,
people would
not
have,
really, because we've got endorsed Kamala Harris as our next agenda item, and
oh, excuse me.
that will
Sorry.
be different from everything we've proposed. We'll just be saying yes or no on that one without any questionnaire or anything. So I guess
Well,
it will
that's
be.
where I beg to differ on that, because just because I wrote it like that on the agenda, I do think things should follow our process. Barry?
Uh, Thanks. I have a lot of background noise, so I try to stay muted. Uh, I support the process. It seems similar to a draft I think I sent you, Carol,
Yes.
early on in the process. Um, and, you know, Kamala is a kind of an exception because she's a known entity. For many of these endorsements, we don't know a lot about the person, and so we have to do some of the research. So certainly, I think these can be guidelines, not requirements. Showing a good process, but it doesn't have to be strictly followed. It's just as an aid to get you to the point of being able to endorse it or not, and having something to back it up if challenged. But anyway, that's enough.
I agree, Barry.
Yeah,
that takes care of my concern. I think it's a good process. I think it really serves us when we don't know the candidates. But I think we would want to be able to decide on a case-by-case basis when we use the process.
Yeah, I think that's understood, right? Quite often, the process is that a candidate comes to the club and says, I would like your endorsement. And in that case, the president or someone can say, who wants to, prepare this the application, which means researching for more information and asking the applicant to fill out a questionnaire. So that's a minimum that would happen as a guideline if we got enough time notice. Anyway, I guess I should ask for, but it's simpler till we move on. Ask that whether the steering committee approves this process to be applied on a case-by-case basis for endorsements.
I move that we consider that proposal.
Okay.
I second.
I call a vote.
Well, I would like a clarification on what's our process when it's not somebody that comes to us to ask for an endorsement.
That's part of the case-by-case. So there are going to be cases like Kamala that fall outside that, and we'll have to figure out as a body how and whether we make a decision on others. I think. I don't think we can make everybody fit into that mold.
I understood, Amanda, when I read through it, that in any one of us, or even potentially any member of Sustainable Rossmoor, could suggest an endorsement to the committee and trigger the process. So it could be triggered from our side, or it could be triggered from the candidate's side. That's what I understood. Did I miss something?
That sounds right to me.
Yep, correct. Okay, so you have had discussion. Is there more discussion, or can we take a vote?
Let's vote.
Let's vote.
Amanda, you're pausing like something's
Yeah,
going on for you.
well, I really don't understand what we're gonna do in terms of what process are we following when we endorse for the potential endorsement of Kamala Harris.
We're gonna we're gonna follow an extremely expedited, process.
And it's going to really be up to the person proposing to endorse Kamala that they make the case for that. She's not going to fill out a questionnaire. We have a fair amount of information already about her opponent. And so
Sure.
in terms of, I'm not talking about just her, I'm talking about cases that aren't going to fit in our mold. I think we can have an analogous process where we want information about all the candidates that we could vote on. And then as a steering committee, we decide whether to endorse them or not. And we may have varying opinions in the steering committee about whether that person rises to a level that we want to endorse. But it's not the same process. It really isn't.
Carol,
Nope.
did the committee have a decision or a statement about restricting the campaigns to state and local elections rather
We
than?
did not.
No, because Mark Desaulnier is our congressional representative, for example, and so we would be very interested in whoever, decides they want to run for his seat if he retires.
But that
So,
would be a state race,
oh, that's
wouldn't it?
federal. That's a federal.
That's
He's
federal, when we're not talking about this year, but and it could happen in 2 years.
right. So we didn't want to limit it because the only way we would limit it is to people who represent us. So the president represents us, our US senators represent us, our congressperson, our state senators, all that. Anybody who would represent Rossmoor, who would be on our ballots.
Right.
Okay.
So basically, Amanda, we're talking about relying on the steering committee's judgment for an informal process that makes sense for a given candidate who we are not using the given process for.
The exceptions, yeah.
Yeah.
I would just request that we document that in the process.
Okay, have like have an upfront paragraph that says that.
Yes.
I will rewrite it and submit that to you and Barry. I would CC the rest of the committee.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
are we putting off the vote until that time, or can we vote now, Amanda?
I'm happy to vote now with that caveat that it's approved until there is an introductory paragraph describing when the process will be followed and when it is not necessary.
Do we
So
need
I
a new
move that.
motion and second, or is just a motion and second we already did count? If I'll move it as amended with Amanda's request.
I'll second.
Okay.
We ready for a vote?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Sorry, aye.
No. Number 5, endorse Kamala Harris.
This one doesn't have any particular person attached to it because it just came up in the Gmail or the Google group or whatever that people seemed interested in doing it. So that's why ask that it be added to the agenda. Clearly, she's the climate candidate. Clearly, Trump is not. I move we endorse Kamala Harris.
A second.
In the discussion, I would like to add that that tends to make our club very political. Maybe not, yeah, more so, I think, than those following our endorsement procedures.
So are you recommending against it, Carol?
I'm not going to vote for it. I don't think she
Um,
needs I don't think she needs our endorsement. I think that has potential disadvantages for the club to endorse her. We're not going to be carrying her literature at our table. It would be if we endorse her, then, and somebody wants to supply the literature, then we would do that for our endorsed candidates. So I just, for that reason, I think it'd be good to just not do it. And that's my own vote that I would live with. And I agree with you. She's the climate champion and her opponent is not. And that part is quite clear cut. I don't think I need more information on either candidate to make a decision. I just don't see that it benefits the club or her.
I'm confused. I thought you were one of them on the Gmail string that wanted to endorse. So I guess I'm mistaken.
I may have at the time. I don't remember.
Barry?
So I think we can make a distinction between Earth Matters not being a political column, but that we do support candidates who are environmental stewards. We might need to exclude such endorsements in the Earth Matters columns, but I think we can make that distinction. So I don't think, making these endorsements will be to the detriment of making a position on Earth Matters column. So I'm in favor of endorsing Kamala as that SR endorse Kamala Harris.
I thought Carol was referring more broadly to the reputation of sustainable Rossmoor and how it might be situated in the overall landscape, political opinion-based landscape of Rossmoor. Thought she was saying, maybe we keep things more open and inclusive in the club by not taking such an overt position. I know that's a weird way to say it, but that's what I was hearing from you, Carol, and I'm just trying to consider your comment as fully as possible.
I agree with Carol that I don't know that.
Rephrase.
I'm sorry, Carol, I didn't hear you.
I said that's a reasonable rephrase.
Okay, thank you.
I interrupted you, Amanda.
Okay.
Right. I don't know that Kamala needs our endorsement, and I could potentially see some negative implications and would prefer to stay away from it. I'm like the GRF board.
Any other discussion?
I just am reflecting on, when the decision was made, I think it was the year before I came onto the steering committee. So I feel like as a newbie, I was born into kind of the new sustainable Rossmoor that was more political. The decision that's where our leverage lies, for our agenda, rather than on just, sort of doing things like solar and trash recycling and all the good things that we do and have done in the past. There was a decision, right, to have a legislative committee and to begin to move into exercising our influence and leverage in the political arena. And this question is kind of the natural extension of all of that. And you know, are we? So I really have a question. Are we at this moment, you know, finding ourselves on that gray area continuum and trying to draw a line, you know, a somewhat arbitrary line somewhere, because we're considering the bigger picture, just like, as somebody said, like the GRF board have found itself having to do. So that's the question that's in my mind.
And I realize now that the comments I made put Pop 24 in a bit of a pickle.
No, that's
Can
okay.
I kind of remind everybody that Sample Rossmoor, yeah, has historically and made the distinction that we are political. We are not partisan though. And so everything all the legislation that we endorse is all political, but we do it regardless of the partisanship of the person who proposed it. Just like we would not be endorsing Kamala because she's a Democrat. We would be endorsing her because she is, by far and away, would be the best environmental steward, and her opponent is the exact opposite. He would destroy the planet. So it's not because of one's a Republican, one's a Democrat. It's because of their environmental, you know, positions.
Right.
And that's why we had Pop 2020 vote climate 2020.
Right. I mean, I would vote for a Republican if he's clearly the, you know, the strongest environmental steward.
I think it does matter that Sustainable Rossmoor endorses Kamala Harris. I'd like to see us consider a full slate rather than individual candidates that we endorse. Thanks.
I think you're in charge of that committee, John. It's different. Well, maybe it is an endorsement committee issue, I guess. I didn't envision going with a slate, with the exception of putting Linda, our campaign efforts for Linda Deschambault and Marisol in the same bucket to make it be efficient for campaigning. But I didn't imagine a more extensive slate.
Slates are terrific, and I think it's a nice indication of the involvement of the committee. League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, for example. I'm not trying to make more work for anyone.
Okay. The League of Women Voters makes statements on propositions, but do they make, they don't make statements on candidates.
They just have candidate forums.
Right.
Okay, I take back that statement.
But clearly, Sierra Club does, so.
Plus, there's
Barry,
also
what should we do? And we're at time. How should we wrap this up?
We should call the question on this particular motion of whether to endorse her or not.
Right. So I'll call the question. I think we've had a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Okay. All those against? And all those that abstain?
Aye.
I
Oh. So I think we had 4 yes, 3 abstain.
Amanda, I don't know if you voted on this one or not.
I abstained.
Okay. Okay.
So
There
but we
were
have
eight,
more positive, so
So it
the
passes.
motion carries.
Yeah.
wait, four positive, three abstained, but
Yes,
there were eight participants. So what happened to the
okay.
last one?
I, well, I better do it again. So all those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Let's see it all.
So Barry, where are you
Four.
gonna, where are you getting the
And,
count of
and
8?
is Joy, are you voting? So we
She's
have
not,
8 part,
yeah, but she's
and
not a
then,
member of the steering committee.
okay. So, then we have the
That
4
explains it.
yes,
Okay, four
okay, and
ayes
the
and
3,
three abstentions.
okay. So the motion passes. Okay, I'm sorry we've gone over. Can people stay on an extra 5 minutes while we do the legislative committee update and the focus on democracy
Sure,
donation?
I'm retired.
Sure.
Mhm. Yep.
Yes.
There's,
All
let's,
right,
okay,
legislative
and, I'm
update.
sorry, Amanda, there was also, a new business. I don't know if you saw the email, but about needing to have our room requests in, and, the impact, what they're proposing, how much more stringent it is, but we can discuss, we can do that by email. I mean, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's by September the 1st, isn't it? Or it's very early. So I'll turn my attention to that. Pam, legislative committee?
just wanted to say that I'll be sending you letters, Amanda, today or tomorrow to send to RBK and Senator Glazer, listing our positions on the bills that we're following that are now on the floors of each house. And we're hoping that if people have questions about whether we should be supporting something, they ask the legislative committee and not use the Google groups to tell people to call. We've had that happen a few times now. And we have a legislative committee for a reason. So we'll send out information telling our representatives what bills we're supporting. There's one we're opposing. And if we need people to make calls, we'll put out the information asking them to make calls.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
And Barry?
Yeah, so we've received $800 in receipts. But I think that is there's still more to be coming. If And so I fully expect we'll end up having that we'll be matching the full $1,000. Right now we have 800, but I'm hopeful we'll get to 1,000 in receipts. That's all.
Right. Okay. Is there any other new business?
Yeah,
So,
I had a question that I'd like to ask the steering committee. Is there knowledge of insurance for participants in Friends of Tice Creek activities? I was asked by the Friends of the Creeks group about insurance being offered, because what we're talking about is doing hiking, perhaps going into the creek, perhaps doing physical activities. Does Sustainable Rossmoor have any insurance that would cover those activities?
No, nothing beyond what is offered through the Activities Council. Because we pay money to them. All clubs pay money related to their number of members to have some insurance. And I know that's the same for the Trails Club. So I know they're covered if it's a member participating in an event sponsored by the club.
Would,
I'll look up. We don't have anything beyond that.
would I be able to speak with you in the future, Amanda, about this? I'd like to clarify this with Friends of the Creeks and Leslie Hunt. What specifically we might be looking at to speak with the Activities Council or yourself about this.
Right. Yes, I'd have to go to the Activities Council and find out what exactly that insurance is. But I know that's why we pay membership.
I see. I see. All right. I'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Barry, did you need to say something?
Yeah, just that we're going to be asking all of the committees who want rooms accurate meeting requests. So that means if it's a recurring meeting request, when you're not going to use the room, when it's going to be at a different time than what the recurring request is, because what's being proposed by GRF staff is that if you have more than 2 cancellations in a year, you could lose future privileges. If you have more than 2 changes in a year, you could be losing future privileges. They're being rather draconian in what they're proposing in an attempt to reduce their workload. And it's kind of like, having change fees on the airlines. It's like, how often do you know exactly what you're going to do a year in advance? But this is what they're proposing. And we need to be cognizant of that and give it our best shot. So we'll reiterate this through email, but it's something that Amanda's going to be focusing on in the next 11 days. It's not going to be fun.
It's my least favorite thing to do, and it's very stressful too.
Yes.
But yes.
Barry,
Right,
just real quick, your update on the donation wasn't up for Focus for Democracy. It was about EVP, right?
No, that was on Focus for Democracy. EVP, I had agreed I would hold off. That first would be the request for a Focus for Democracy, and then I would make the appeal for EVP.
Oh,
And
I
that would
see.
that would
Okay.
be with my own funds, because I had made that as a prior commitment. In years past, yeah, it was an add-on match in addition to Sustainable Rossmoor, but this year we changed to Focus for Democracy. And so that
Okay.
one
I
has gone out.
misunderstood. Okay.
Right, the EVP, I waited as what I thought was a respectable amount of time and sent that out last night. But that was based on the approval from the steering committee that I could e-broadcast to the group. But that was 1 or 2 meetings ago regarding that. So this is just Focus for Democracy. For EVP, that went out yesterday. Don't know of anything that's been done on that yet, any response from anyone. And given this election cycle, I don't expect there. It might not be a lot. It might not cost me very much to offer this match. We'll see.
Okay. I'm still confused because I do Focus for Democracy otherwise. So I don't know how to dovetail with what you're doing, but I'll handle that offline with you.
Okay, very good. Okay, take care.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you soon.
Thank you,
Bye.
Amanda.